Hey, welcome to Peep Show Talk number 18. And yes, we're back. I took a 2 week hiatus. I had a bit of a tragedy in my life here. My cat of 15 and a half years had cancer and we had to put him down. And I've since got another kitten. So that's why I haven't produced any videos for 2 weeks. But we are back, and don't be surprised if my new kitten makes an appearance. In fact, if you want to learn a little bit more about him, just look up Leo, the Shelter Maine Coon Kitten. And he's got a bunch of videos that are doing way better than my military vehicle videos. So, hey, today's an exciting day because we've got a great guest on the program. If you enjoy these videos, go ahead and like and share. Comment if you like. If you don't, just go watch something else. Just go away. There is no reason for you to hang around this channel if you don't like it. I don't need your negativity. If you would like to support the channel, you could possibly consider buying one of my books. You know, if you'd like to, great. If you don't, I have one on CB radio, history, my book on chaplains, my Army signal pigeon book, and a book on the U.S. Civil War. So, without further delay, welcome Damon Viola.
Yeah, hi Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, hey, I'm so glad that you're here today. And you know, I've been watching you all the things that you produce, all of your different videos and memes and stuff. So I've always kind of wanted to talk to you. So how did you get in the military vehicle hobby?
Well, I actually started some years ago. God, I don't even remember when. It was probably in the 70s. And I was driving down. I lived in San Jose at the time, and I lived near this expressway. And I was driving down one day, and I saw this Dodge truck in a parking lot at a gas station, and it had a for sale sign on it. And it intrigued me because when I was a little kid, we have had some family members that had a ranch in Northern California, and they had an old Dodge ambulance.
Mhm.
And we used to play in that as a kid. Weren't old enough to really do much else with it, but it just stuck in my mind. So I saw this truck at a gas station, and long story short on it, we wound up, my brother and I, we bought it, and it was a real mess. We didn't know anything about them, parts, or we just thought they were cool. And we managed to put it all together. It wasn't very original, and we never got around to doing the bed on it. But that was my first real experience with World War II stuff, which is my main interest in the military genre. And anyway, my brother, he put up all the money because I didn't have any. In those days, it was always the issue. So he wound up selling it. And then he wound up getting a Jeep, M38A1, and he fixed it up, and then he sold it. And finally, I got tired of him, you know, I do all this work and helped him out, and then he would sell them. So I said, I got to get my own. And so my first owned military vehicle was a 1941 Dodge, was an ambulance WC-18. Fortunately, it was a parts truck. The body had been hacked off, and it was just a mess. But the guy I got it from, he said, well, I got a bunch of old trucks. I'll, when you need a cab, come back. When you need fenders, come back, and so on. So I wound up putting it together in a configuration that is not anything original, but it's a cool truck. It looks like a miniature 1.5-ton Chevrolet with dual wheels on the back and a wider bed. So that was it. So I had that, and then I worked on other people's stuff over the years, and I didn't actually acquire another vehicle of my own until I got my 43 GPW Ford Jeep.
Well, why don't we, you sent me that video of the truck, so why don't we take a look at it? Maybe you can talk people through it. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as the license plate says, it's 1941 Dodge. The bed that you're looking at here is actually a reconfigured trailer bed from an M101. And that's my Jeep there. But so it's totally made up, but it's been a cool truck. I've had it on the road since like 82 or 83. And it's just followed me around wherever I've gone. So this, of course, is the GPW 1943 Ford. And it's an accurate restoration, probably about 90% original Ford parts. It does have replacement floors as typical with these, but the original tub. So
Hmm.
That's the one I really put the energy in. The Dodge is, like I say, uh, it's been repainted once and the engine's been changed and all that. So it's just been part of the family. It's like I could never sell it. I don't really use it much anymore, but it still runs, and it gets lots of attention. It's been in a couple of movies and TV shows,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
so
I think it's really kind of a cool truck. It's kind of like I've always liked the Chevy G506 series because you get the feeling of the bigger truck without having the bigger truck. And this is even like another smaller step down because you get very much the same feeling as like a Chevy, but it's even smaller than that.
exactly. And that was between the guy that sold me the parts. We were talking about it. He goes, "Hey, since you don't have a bed, and it's a longer wheelbase than the standard weapons carrier." And he says, "Hey, why don't we just make up a bed for it, and it'll be like a little miniature Chevy." And
Hmm.
because the Chevys, I mean, they're not long like a CCKW, a deuce and a half, but they are, but they're big trucks. And so this is still handy. If it wasn't for the canvas and the top bows, you could squeeze it in most garages,
Hmm.
um, which I've done. It's a pain in the butt to take all that stuff off every time you want to take it out. But
Right.
those days are over now that I have a nice facility to keep it in. But anyway, that was it. And people are I do parades and all the usual stuff, and people are always curious on what it is, and people that know military stuff, they're even more like, "Oh, that's a Chevy," and I go, "No, it isn't." And then we have a nice discussion about
Hmm.
what it is and what it isn't.
What's like, do you know the proportional differences between this and like a standard Chevy G506?
Well, lengthwise might be close. It is a Dodge, a half-ton series, so it's on 16-inch wheels,
Hmm.
whereas the Chevy, like the Deuce, is on 20-inch wheels, and so they sit a lot higher, and they probably have just a spring arc and all that is taller. So it's just if you stood side by side next to each one, you would really notice that that's a
Hmm.
considerably bigger truck. The only thing dimensionally about the same probably is the cab dimensions,
Hmm.
which were civilian carryovers. So, they're pretty standard.
And was
But
the
yeah.
cab just like a standard Dodge cab that you found, or was it fabricated, especially since it started as an
Well,
ATV?
the way they did it back then is, we were just getting out of civilian thinking because we weren't actually even in the war when this was originally built. But the Army realized they needed more than just civilian design trucks. So
Hmm.
these half tons are sort of a hybrid between civilian thinking and military design. So they literally used the cab that was standard for the day in their civilian trucks. There's some subtle differences in the firewall, and the dash has got some differences and all that. But it's dimensionally it's the same. And even though this had an ambulance body on it, the pads where the cab mounts is the same. So
Hmm.
you literally just bolt it on.
Right.
I
So,
did
so
modify this cab to
is
the
that
to the
then just a
military
military
spec.
cab, a civilian cab?
This is a
Okay.
civilian cab. It's probably a 47,
Okay.
post-war. Uh, I mean, I don't want to bore you with details, but the military cabs had windshields that slide out on slides, kind of like a Jeep windshield,
Hmm.
whereas the civilian trucks had a hand crank on the dash and that you turned and it would push the window out. Well, I took the remnants of what I did have in the ambulance body, which was the front cowl section, and I swapped the dash and the firewall out of that to make this military cab fit better in terms of the connection with the hood and all of that, and the
Hmm.
windshield works like it's supposed to.
Right.
So,
Well, I think it's a fine vehicle, and you took something that really probably wouldn't have been savable and turn it into something that's really nice. So,
well,
um,
that's exactly my thinking, and most people appreciate what it is. I never push it off as something original.
mhm.
There's always those few that say, well, what a waste of time and energy. Why would you do that? Why don't you just do it original? Well, the last time I checked, finding an original ambulance body is not too easy to find, nor was it worth it to go to that trouble. This truck would have been scrap otherwise. So
Mhm.
I've saved it from that. So I feel good about what I did, and it served me really well over the years.
Mhm. Why don't you tell us about your GPW then?
That one, okay, I got that from a guy that He's a member of our local chapter of the Military Vehicle Collectors of California. I've known him for years, from the early days that I got involved in the organization. And he's always had a Stewart tank, and he's actually had two. Long story with how he got them and what happened to him. But the second one he started to work on it many, many years ago. And he approached me one day at one of our events and says, "Hey, I'm never going to get around to finishing this. You think you could, if you have the time, you might want to come out and do that?" So, and I'd never worked on a tank before, and it was all apart. So I didn't even know how it was put together. Anyway, over about a 3-year period between him and I working on it, we put that thing together. I put videos of it up occasionally. It's a beautiful tank. It came out really nice.
What kind of a tank is it?
I would live in a trailer on his property on the weeks that I was there working on it. And so he hauled in this Jeep because that's his thing. He used to go up and down the Central Valley in California and buy whatever he could find. So he had this Jeep, and he never keeps anything. He's constantly flipping stuff because it's just sort of a business with him.
Those are the best. Those are the best friends to have, aren't they? Like the people who never keep anything, because they know where to find everything, and they never keep it.
Well, and you can thank these guys because they've saved a lot that maybe would have gotten melted down. Mm-hmm. And he told me, he says, and he's been doing this since probably the 70s. And back in the day, you could find these a lot easier. Now they're drying up. But he says so many that he parted out. He says, I would never do that now. They're just worth so much money that it would be a shame. So a ton of them went away, but they still help people because he sold the parts. But in this particular one, it was going to go up for sale shortly. And I said, hey, I haven't done anything in a long, long time other than working on your tank. And so we talked and agreed on a price, and he was very fair with his price for what I got. And it was another 3-year project for me to turn it into what you see here. It's ground up. It was on a rotisserie to do the tub and all of that. So, I've been in every crack and crevice in this thing.
What kind of a tank did he have?
The Stewart M5A1.
Okay.
Late generation. And he had, he's well off enough financially he can afford to have one and restore one. And he had, it was all outfitted with all the proper machine guns. They were converted to semi-auto, so they were legal, but they were the real deal. And the cannon itself had been demilled, of course, but he had the engines in it. One was a brand new NOS engine in a crate, and they're Cadillac flathead engines. And the other one was a government rebuild from back in the day. So
nice.
He had really good stuff to work with. And the tank itself was a good example to start. Those things are prone to be, they leave the hatches open, and over the years, the turret basket, everything's all rusted out, and they're a real mess. And this one, he put some energy in getting the proper materials to fix all that, but it was a good one. And it won at the MVPA convention back when it was in Pleasanton. It was probably about four years ago or so. And anyway, it's a beautiful tank. I've driven it a little bit, and it's fun to drive, and I wouldn't mind having it, but it's a little bit out of my league.
Right. It's not just buying the tank, then you got to get all the stuff to go with it, the heavy equipment hauler and everything else with it. So it's
and he didn't have that, but he's got a buddy that lives not far from him that is has all the licenses and tractors and trailers and stuff. And he actually bought a military hauling trailer, probably late 40s, 50s or something like that, from another member that passed away. And so he doesn't have any way to haul it, but his buddy has all that stuff. So when he does need to take it out, he can get that done without too much trouble. So.
Yeah, I think it really takes a village to own a tank, because you've got to have people to help you work on it. You got to have people to help you haul it.
Exactly.
And you've got to have deep enough pockets to manage all that.
It's a high roller thing. And this tank is about as, is modest for a full-on tank. I mean, even compared to even a Sherman tank,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's bigger, and you know, a lot of tanks have radial engines in them, and that's a whole nother level of effort to get those together and running properly, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
This one is basically the last generation of Stewart tanks. General Motors had a contract, and they told the government, you know, from the earlier versions that had radial engines in them, they told the government, you know, hey, we can build you your tanks and for cheaper. And they just used their automotive technology at the time. So flathead Cadillac engine with a standard 3-speed, I believe, automatic transmission of the day, times 2. So there's 2 engines and 2 trannies in those things.
How long has it been since you finished the Jeep?
I finished it. It's been about 3 years. I don't drive it a lot because I know they don't look new when you start using them.
Right.
So I try to keep it up and, you know, keep it out of the elements. I never let it stay outside. You know, I mean, everybody has their philosophy on how you should enjoy your military vehicle. I didn't necessarily want a show queen that I hauled it off a trailer into the display area and then, you know, pushed it back on and took it away. I wanted something in between. So I don't mind driving it. And up here where I live, it's dirt roads and it's snow. I mean, I don't really take it out in the mud or anything, but you know, it gets dusty and dirty. But if you stay on top of it, you know, you can keep it looking nice. So
Okay. So how did you get going with your whole Jeep Talk project, your franchise there with your videos and
well, that was born out of me having this Jeep initially. You know, obviously when you get something like this, and I never worked on a Jeep before. This was all new to me. This is my first effort at restoring one of these. And, you know, obviously when you get something new, you want to learn about it. And so you start doing your research. And back in the day when I did my Dodge truck, there was no internet. It was very hard to find sources and people with like-minded interests. But as far as the Jeep goes, I got on Facebook and I started, you know, seeing all the different Facebook sites that related to Jeeps. And, you know, you interviewed Scott Schill the other day, and he was like the biggest inspiration for me to do something more than just take information from these sites. I wanted to contribute. And I was impressed with how he did his videos and, you know, all the stuff he's doing. So I have a background in video production, and I spent some time in LA and Hollywood. And so I've been in behind the camera, in front of the camera. So I thought, well, I have some skills that maybe I could produce some videos. And that's was sort of the beginning of it all. And, you know, I mean, I was limited by budget and, you know, time constraints and expertise in some areas, but that's what started the videos.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, some of them are kind of basic, and some I spend a lot of time with the video editor and, you know, doing music and try to make them more than just a dry presentation. And my other philosophy about all that is I kind of wanted to add an element of humor to my productions. And I took a good friend of mine who's also involved in all this stuff. I took him on as a partner. And so that's why if you've seen some of the earlier videos, well, actually most of them, except for the very earliest ones, he's my on-camera
He's your sidekick.
cohort. And
yeah, right
anyway,
now I've got playing your Stewart tank video.
Yeah, no, this is Lee Edwards. He's like I say, he's a longtime member. He owns a Dodge Command car, and he's got a World War I naval gun and all that I restored for him. And I mean, some really interesting stuff. He's got a private museum on his property with weapons and uniforms and, you know, radio gear and on and on and on. But a really great guy. He's treated me really well the whole time that I worked with him on this tank. This was at our MVPA convention in Pleasanton, California, where he had it on display.
Yeah, it's funny because, again, I live in the middle of Missouri here, but I actually set up an my last gig in the Army is I went out and I set up a school in Dublin, California.
Mm.
at Canton Parks, which is right there. So when the convention was happening, I'm like, I know exactly where that is. So
Yeah, it's a nice venue. I mean, 'cause I've been to conventions all around over the years, and some places around the middle of nowhere. This one is actually a very expensive area to live in, and well, all of California is, but this
right.
particular area is rather pricey, and it's
That
it's very beautiful
yeah,
to drive
that
around.
area, Dublin, Pleasanton, Fullerton, I think it is like I think Dublin was the fastest growing community in California because it was right at the end of the BART line
Exactly.
from San Francisco. So I could fly into the Oakland airport and then catch the BART out to the final stop, and then I could conceivably walk to Camp Parks if I didn't have too much luggage or I had a roller bag or something. So but yeah, it's a great area. It's super nice, great weather. And I was out there in March, which was a
Hmm.
great time. So everyone wanted to come visit me, who visit my school. Um, but anyway, yeah, that looked like that was a fun convention. So let's go back.
Yeah, yeah. That was the first. I had just literally the paint was still drying on the numbers, my hood numbers on my Jeep,
Mhm,
almost, but and loading it to take it to that show.
mhm.
I had, I mean, it was beautiful because it looked brand new. It didn't even, the paint wasn't even worn off the pedals because I hadn't driven it. But it had a terrible, terrible Jeep lean because of, well, about Jeep. So, all about that.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have time to fix it. So here it is in a row with all these other nice Jeeps, and mine's like really excessive leaning, but, it was just the way it was. And I've since corrected all of that. But,
Yeah,
I was glad I made it.
my GPW, we fixed all the springs and shocks and everything last year, and it actually got worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, it's actually worse than it was
Well,
before.
I had to, it's that torque reaction spring that screws you up. And I on my Jeep, it was an early 43, so it would have had the lighter spring, less spring leaves in the spring than the later ones. And I kind of made my springs up out of parts from Lee's boneyard because he had taken so many Jeeps apart. There was a pile of springs and all that. And I was on a total budget. I couldn't just go out and buy new stuff or NOS stuff. So I wound up mixing and matching leaves, and I wound up, to fix it, I actually had to de-arch the passenger side spring a little bit to kind of bring that down to get it level. And it was a pain, but I got it. So now it sits nice and straight and
Yeah,
drives
I'll
fine.
probably still fix mine here at some point, but when I finished it, I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, it's gonna have to sit for a while that way, and it's not an uncommon thing. So so anyway, I'm showing kind of episode one. So
This is my first attempt. I was experimenting with green screen,
well, it looks
and
like you needed to dial in your station there a little bit. There you go.
yeah, this is my attempt at humor, early attempt. And this was prior to Sean coming on board. So I did all the stuff myself. And there's my Dodge, which I was talking about how I got started in the hobby and stuff. So,
Uh-huh. Cool. Cool. So then you brought Sean on board, and then you guys kind of tag teamed the videos, I think.
well,
Like you.
Sean, I met him at one of our California events. I'd known him for some years, but we never really talked that much. But he's got a great sense of humor. He's a really funny guy. It's just he's just listen to him talk. So we clicked because I I like to think I have a good sense of humor too. And so anyway, we just totally were on the same page about all that. And then we said, well, I asked him, I said, hey, do you want to, I'm just starting this Jeep Talk thing. And even though he's not, his thing is like Humvees, and he's kind of into the later stuff. But anyway, he saw that it was kind of a cool thing that I was starting to do. And so he jumped on board, and
Mhm.
I mean, the only problem with him, and it's not a problem, it's just that he is a working man. He works 5 days a week, and his time is not like mine. I'm quote retired or semi-retired for the most part, so I have way more time to do this, and that's why He's more the on-camera guy, and he contributes in that way. I do all the background editing and stuff, and he's put up a couple of Jeep talks that he did himself. But for the most part, that's kind of the way the arrangement's gone. Is, you know, and he's the idea guy too. We'll sit around and start discussing, well, what do we want to do? What do we want to say? And he comes up with some great stuff. A lot of the little shtick that we do, if you watch some of the later ones, you'll see there's always something silly going on. And a lot of that is his inspiration. So I think he's a great asset to what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I always enjoyed your videos, and you haven't produced that many lately. And I know you've been sidetracked with a few other things, but exactly. I know you've been cranking out the memes, though.
Well, okay, so the philosophy of that, I mean, I started doing them, well, you know, when I was still doing the videos, and but the videos have basically been non-existent for some time now, and the reason that most people that follow me know why, it's because of the shop. It's been an experience, but it's also been a nightmare because the you know, I just got underway on it, and construction started, and then COVID hit, and then, you know, all the complications from that, like material shortages and prices going up. It's just, the only thing that would have been worse in doing my shop is if I had waited another 6 months or a year, and it would have been even worse.
Right.
So, I mean, luckily all the heavy lifting is done, but it's been very time intensive. I have actually a friend of mine who kind of did the general contractor thing. We didn't just go hire a construction company. And so it's been great because it saves me money, but it's just been harder to get things done. And you know, in all honesty, I don't think I'd ever want to go through it again.
Yeah, and why don't we look at some of your pictures? I think we all dream of having the garage mahal, and it's always good to see someone who's building exactly what they want and they need. I know I have a little bit of garage envy going on right now because of this, but so this is the outside of it.
That's the front. Yeah, it's just down past my house. We had to buy the lot next door to the lot that we built our house on, which we built that a few years ago, in order to find a flat enough space, because where I live, it's nothing but hills and slopes. So we were luckily able to get the lot next door. It wasn't even for sale, but we had a realtor track down the owners, and turns out the owner passed away, and the sons had it, and they didn't know what to do with it. So we worked out an arrangement, but I had to buy 2 lots, unfortunately. These are like acre lots, is standard for up here. And I had to buy the one that the shop is on, plus an adjacent one. But I got that just as you know, for not that much more. So I just have some extra land, basically. But
how big is it?
We were so grateful that it happened, because that's where I really wanted to put my shop.
How big is it?
It's 60 by 40, and it's 16 feet high. My thinking was, if I ever get a Mondo motorhome, Class A or something, I could literally just park it in the building, and I can drive it out the back, as you'll see shortly in this video of the back side of it.
And how long ago did you start construction on it?
It's been, this is the back here. It's been, what, going on a year and a half now. There was just delays and delays. I mean, the good news is where I live, the paperwork to build, you know, permits and all that is fairly easy compared to a bigger urban area where, you know, they get really anal about plans and, you know, layouts and stuff. And so the inspections have gone smoothly. So that's one thing that I don't complain about, because that can, coming from California where I used to live, it's a nightmare to build anything. And it takes forever to get the process underway and completed. So
yeah, I can completely understand that, because where I work, we wanted to do some, we wanted to put in a parking lot outside of our building, and we had to get it signed off by the city arborist, who's apparently the most powerful person in the city of Columbia. So, but yeah, this looks like a great building. Looks like you got plenty of room in there. And so we've seen the outside. Let's go ahead and look on the inside a little bit. So this would be The interior open space.
Correct. This is from the loft, which there's another shot of what's in the loft, but it gives me a good vantage point to shoot some video or pictures of what's going on down on the shop floor.
Nice. And it looks like you've got your lift up and you got another
The
project.
lift, that's, again, COVID related. I bought that lift at the Hot August Nights show, which is a big thing out here in Nevada every summer.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the vendors there. And this was actually ordered through Napa. And I bought it, so it was in August. And they said, well, there's delays because of supplies and the usual excuses. But I literally just got it like 3 weeks ago. It's been that long. And luckily, I scheduled a installation company that had a schedule that I didn't have to wait another couple of months just to get it installed. So that went up pretty quick. So that's all done, and as you can see, functional.
So this is your upper story.
This is the loft. Now I really scored on this. The loft area is like what is it? I forget, like 20 by 20 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was going to put shelving up here, but if you've ever priced shelving of that type, it's very expensive. And so I hit the timing just right. It was a company that had to get out of their big and huge industrial warehouse, and they were selling each section of that loft shelving there for $20. That included the particle board shelving itself. So I really scored on it, but I had to run down in my truck, and I barely got it all in one load because it was like, if you don't get it today, it's going to be gone. So that was great. I saved a ton of money with that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I really like your arrangement here because you've got quite a bit of floor space. You've got a lift, you've got a good storage area, and then a nice big set of stairs to go up there. And then you've utilized the space underneath it.
Yeah, and you'll see in one of the other videos of what's underneath it, which to me was as equally important as the shop space itself.
And here we go. I'm showing that now.
This is my office. I live we built our house, and it's just my wife and I, and we're retired, so we didn't want a big house. So plus we had budget constraints, so we only built a 1-bedroom house, which is fine for us, but I didn't have an area to have my computer. I had it down in the garage. So this was as important as, like I say, the shop itself, is to have, my man cave space. And this room here with the computer is where I will be doing all the future editing of Jeep Talk and any other projects that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a friend of mine who lives down in, I think it's Owensville, Missouri. And he's got a really nice big shop. And and his wife, they actually bought one of those like standalone prefab cabins, and they put that out on their property, and they kind of fixed that up. So then he's got his space and she's got her space. So if they get in a fight or something, each of them kind of go to their separate corners for a couple of days and then come back out. So, but
yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, because I haven't featured it on Facebook at all, but just up the road across from my house from this building is the building that I built for my wife, or is in progress, because she's a crafter and she needs her own space to do her interest. And plus we didn't have a guest room. So if people come out, they're sleeping on the couch.
Yeah.
So, and I will put up some pictures of that at some point. I just haven't gotten into that yet, but it's a beautiful, like a cabin, secondary building with it. Will have a place for guests as well as a big studio for her
nice.
her work.
What kind of crafting does she do?
She mostly does cards. She's, you should see some of the designs and stuff. It's very intricate. And it's a big deal nowadays. You wouldn't think, well, you could just go buy a Hallmark card, but now people really enjoy making these and receiving these. They're like works of art, and she's really good at it. So she just needs her space to get that going for her.
So what are some of your lessons learned? It seems like you're kind of closing in on the objective here of finishing this project. Like what is some of your, what kind of things, like for me, maybe a couple of years down the road, what things should I worry about when I go to build my garage mahal?
Well, you know, you want to do your planning so you can design kind of, you know, how you want to use your space. I mean, I've never designed a shop. I worked in collaboration with my project manager friend, and he's you know, he's not like a licensed contractor, but he's very, very talented and very sharp guy. And he worked with me. He said, well, you know, he's the one who suggested making it this big, because I thought, well, you know, that's a big shot. But he says, you got to think ahead. You're only going to get one shot to do this. And unless you absolutely can't afford it, then, you know, basically bigger is better. Think ahead. And that's why we put tall doors and, you know, high ceilings, so that no matter what I get, I can drag in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important, to make sure you kind of see what you think you need and what you might need in the future. And if you can incorporate it into your building from the start, then you're going to be ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing I've noticed working in schools is no matter how much storage that you have, it's always going to get filled. It's the same with a house. You know, no matter
Mm-hmm.
how big your house is, eventually you're going to fill it. And the same is probably true with the shop, unless you're not a pack rat. And if you're not a pack rat, then you're probably not in this hobby.
Right. Because, you know, even if you buy or if you store a Jeep, I guarantee you're going to have stuff related to it, and you're going to need to put it somewhere, or if you need it, you can find it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't send you any, but if I had sent you a picture of the inside of my garage, which is a 2-car, it's actually about equivalent to 3-car garage under my house. And it's a disaster in there. I can't even work in there because there's stuff. And my project after the shop is done enough is to go in that garage and start pulling out anything shop related and get that integrated in here. But I don't want to just dump it on the floor and never get around to, you know, organizing it and sorting it out. So that's going to be as big a project as the shop, I think, just to get that done. But I that's important.
Yeah, I'm kind of dealing with that right now, in that, I mean, when I got the slat, I had in my Jeep, I'm not sure of the length, or the garage, I'm not sure of the length, but I have put 2 World War II Jeeps bumper to bumper on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So that's roughly the length, whatever that is. But when I first got the slat, there was a period of time where I had to store my 1/4-ton trailer in there also. So I had 2 World War II Jeeps, a Miata and a Bantam trailer in there. And since then, I've moved the Bantam trailer to where my WC-51 is stored. So I've got a little more room. But like last night, I was trying to move through there. My girlfriend came over, and the ice was on the deck in the front of the house, so we couldn't go that way. So we had to cut through the garage, and of course she's moving around the Jeep, and then, you know, the hood for the slat is kind of in the way, and then the welder, and then my welding table, and, you know, it was very much an obstacle course.
Absolutely. That's typically how it goes. You know, before you don't even realize it, and suddenly it's like, hey, I can't even work, let alone, you know, I can't even open the door.
Right.
It just seems to be the human condition. You know, we always have more stuff than we really have room for.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of events and shows are out there in that part of the country that you regularly go to?
As far as vehicle related?
Yeah, like MV or classic car related.
Okay, well, I live near Reno, which is the headquarters of the Hot August Nights venue. And you know, I don't know if I'm assuming maybe you heard of it, but it's a big deal out here. People, a lot of people come from California, but you know, they bring all their cars and their haulers and all of that, and it's a huge show, and it encompasses the whole area of Reno and Sparks, which is an adjoining community. And basically at the casino parking lots, and we have some big casinos here, not quite like Vegas, but you know, big venues. And you can just, if you sign up, you have a vehicle and it meets the criteria, and you sign up and pay, of course, you can just, during the day, so it goes all week, you can just go to one of the venues and park, show your car, you know, and talk to people about it. Or you can get in it and drive it over to another venue and spend a few hours there.
Mm-hmm.
It goes into the evening. They have a huge auction. There's all kind of events you can do with your vehicle.
So it kind of looks like
all car related. Now,
the Sturgis
there
of
are some
cars.
military.
It kind of looks like the Sturgis of classic cars.
Yeah, I mean I think it's up to like I don't know where the cutoff is, 70s, anything before, and all the way to Model Ts or whatever and it's just it's such a mix of interesting cars. It's just people that have restored them as original or just full on hot rods and full blown engines and you name it, it's all in there. So if you like cars in general, it's a must see event if you can get to the area. They do prior to the week that they do it in the Reno Sparks area, they do it in on the weekend before in Virginia City, which is literally 5 miles from where I live. So I just drive my Jeep from my house to that one. And that's just like a big main street. The town itself is a total historical gold and silver mining town. And, so it's old buildings, all that. Well, anyway, that's a great event. I really enjoy that one.
It looks like it's 79 and older.
79. Okay. Yeah, that sounds right.
Cool. So what other events do you do out there? Any MVP?
Well, we have in Virginia City and in Reno, there's the usual Veterans Day, Memorial Day parades, 4th of July. There's always a parade, which the ones in Virginia City are just the main street. So they're over pretty quick. You just drive it the length of it and then you can go off and do your thing. And then, the Reno parades the venues are a little bigger there. So there's more parade time, if you will.
Cool.
Showing your stuff. But yeah, so we do parades and the Harris Museum, which is not anything like it was, but most of it got sold off years ago. If you know anything about that, that's a Harris casino resort.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they have a military division of that, and that's still owned by the heirs of the Harris fortune, I guess. And it's not open to the public, but once in a while they will open it if you got an inside track. And I actually put up, I think it's a Jeep Talk, one of my episodes features that, and I got to go in there, and they've got some interesting stuff from all periods, but mostly World War II. And so that's a fun little thing to go if you can get access to it.
The Hera Military Museum, is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, yeah, cool. Here, I'll just kind of run this in the background. So, do you make it out to any of the California events?
Well, since like Sean and me, most of us are all California refugees that escaped the tyranny of living in that state. So, but our main organization we belong to is the Military Vehicle Collectors of California. And they have 2 big events every year, one in the spring and one in the fall. And the venue has moved around over the years, different places. So currently it's not that far over the border from us, which makes it great, in a campground. And it's for typically a week. You can go and you camp, and then we do showcases of, it changes every year. One year it's Jeeps, once last year I think it was on Humvees, and people, there's quite a lot of hardware that shows up for these things. And then this particular venue is in the wine country in California. So if you're tired of looking at olive drab stuff, you can go do wine tasting or whatever suits your fancy that's in the area there. And it's a family oriented thing, so it isn't just guys talking shop all day. We try to do things that appeal to the wives and the kids as well. So
yeah, I've always been impressed with that event, and that it seems to be held at a campground, and there's other things that you can go do, and so I've thought if I want to do some event like that around here, find a site that's a campground that's maybe a little bit underutilized, that would appreciate the business maybe in a little bit of an off season. And I think it could be very successful. Where is the Harris Museum again?
What about it?
Where is it located?
It's in Sparks, which is right next to Reno.
Okay.
And you wouldn't know it. It's just a warehouse building. It's not marked because it's a private collection. And like I say, it's not open to the public normally. Once in a while, they'll open it up for specific events. And some of the vehicles in there, they will, because there's another group. I belong to a very small group in Nevada here called Savoy 6, and it's really just a handful of us. There's another group that's also collectors, and they are more associated with the folks that have these at the museum. So they will pull some of those vehicles out and bring them to parades as well.
Great. So what did you do before you became semi-retired?
Well, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. Early on, I worked for my dad for most of my young years. He had a business that evolved over the years, depending, whatever he could think of doing that might, make a living on. And he started out refinishing appliances. Back in those days, I mean, his pitch was, why spend money on a new refrigerator when you're redoing your kitchen when you can get your old one repainted to match?
Right.
So I learned how to paint. I learned a lot of skills from him. And it evolved. He wound up having a small recording studio, and he actually he did produce an album for a local band that we knew at the time. And then he got into film, and he produced a small documentary, coincidentally, about Virginia City here in Nevada. And I learned so much. I don't have any much formal training in everything I do, but I sort of self-teach myself things. But I learned a lot of basic skills, a lot of basic restoration skills from my dad's business, because he used to do body work on appliances, refrigerators, they get dented or dropped or something, and he could straighten them out. So it's like doing body work, basically. So that's how I learned all that kind of stuff.
So let's talk about, I think you've been in a couple different like movie productions. Is that right?
Well, I had a stint where I moved to Southern California. And what prompted me to go down there is I started, when you're at least it's sort of changed now, but back then, if you were an actor and you were trying to get work in movies and TV, and you did get work, you would put the best of your work on what they call a reel, which is what you would show to casting people, to show little samples of some of your previous work. And so I wanted to produce those, start a business where, people could come and say, okay, here's my clips, put it on a DVD. And so I went down with a friend of mine, and we basically tried to start that. I really didn't get any traction with it, but while I was there, I learned to be on, I started doing some background work on movies and TV. And the biggest thing I did as far as that goes is I worked on HBO's television show Deadwood, which you just passed some photos of me in character. And that was a great little run. I mean, didn't pay much, but I learned a lot about how Hollywood and movie production works, being on all these sets.
Yeah,
I did some other things too there related to that. But that was, it's hard to find steady work in that business, no matter what it is you do, because, productions come and go daily, depending on what they are. But I worked for 2 years on that show, pretty steady.
That's great. I actually was the military advisor to the World War II movie Rhineland, and that, I could do a whole episode on that whole experience about working with the director and authenticity and making suggestions and how to do that. So can you describe what it's like to work on a movie or a TV show? Because I know my experience, and it was really very tedious and repetitive, and
a
little frustrating.
Exactly. It seems like it's glamorous, and there are parts that really truly are exciting, but it's mostly a business of hurry up and wait. If you're on a set, no matter what your job is, whether you're in front of the camera or behind you, you're always waiting for something else to happen. So there's a lot of downtime, and unless you have a way to keep yourself entertained, it gets pretty boring.
And, I know that I drove my Jeep around a wood pile, I think 20 times one morning while we shot a particular scene from very, very different angles. But
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think about the whole situation with the rust and the accidental shooting?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I don't really know anything about Alec Baldwin except that I've heard, that he's very difficult to work with on sets. He's very demanding and all of that. And he's also a flaming liberal, which is, not my style.
Hmm.
So I'm not like overly enamored with him in general. As far as that incident, I don't really trust what he says. I mean, that's just my personal thing on it, but uh, I guess, it'll unfold and we'll see what happens. But,
Yeah.
uh, and we're hearing about, besides his participation, it's just all the lax rules about gun handling on set that didn't follow the normal conventions on how it's supposed to be done. So I think there's a handful of people that should be held accountable for what happened.
Yeah, and I was shocked to hear that they were doing some live fire on the set before. They were out there doing some shooting in the desert before, and I know from my experience with World War II reenacting, it seems like anytime there is an accidental shooting, it like I would say probably 8 out of 10 cases it's where they have gone out and done a live fire incident or a live fire range thing in the morning. They decided to go bust some blanks in the afternoon,
Yeah.
and things just didn't get cleared. So my rule's always been you never mix those two things ever in the same day, same location, things like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're hearing a bunch of stuff, whether it's all true or not, but, like they're saying that they were out, like you said, plinking around in between takes with live ammo. Why there's live ammo on a set anywhere,
That's
anytime
crazy.
is, yeah,
That's
exactly.
absolutely crazy. I mean, in the U.S. Army, you would never do that. Like the live ammo is issued and used, and then it's turned in and cleared, and then like you never do those two events on the same day, same location, anything like that. Never.
Yeah. Well, and then also, I think a lot of it is probably attributed to just budget cuts. They didn't hire accredited people, qualified people, and so protocols weren't followed. And so it's like anything. It's never just a slam dunk, simple explanation. It's
Right.
complicated.
Yeah. Well, it's like a plane crash. One thing leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another. Like
Exactly.
they were live firing, and then because they were live firing, then the weapons didn't get cleared, and because the weapons didn't get cleared, then he didn't check it, and then it's a whole sequence of events that usually leads to something like that. So,
Hmm.
but okay, well, we've been going like almost we're probably about 50 minutes now. So, hey, I appreciate you dialing in today. It's been super
Well, I
fun.
thank
Always
you for
wanted
the
to talk to
opportunity.
you.
Yeah. No, it's been great. I haven't watched all the ones you put up, but I mean, I enjoyed the Scott Schiller one, of course, because I've known Scott for a while, and
And he's an easy target.
yeah, he's an interesting guy. I like him. I know he's got a lot of friends, and he's got probably equal amount of enemies. Um, whatever. I mean, we're all different, but I don't have any beefs against him at all. So,
Mhm.
for those that do, well, I don't know what to say
Yeah,
about that.
he's been nothing but gracious to me, and he actually gave me, yeah, here, there, he gave me the one of a kind G503 hat. So
Yes, yes, I remember him saying
the
he was going to
collector's
do.
edition model. So
No, it's really cool. It probably was a production sample that
uh-huh.
won off, and he got it. And the fact that he was gracious enough to bestow it to you is pretty cool.
Yeah, I was very touched by it. I've actually, I don't expect to get anything from doing this show. Like, I will be shocked if I ever get monetized. It'd be nice to get a little bit of return on it, but I just think it's more about just, introducing people in the hobby and different vendors and giving them an audience to other people and bringing the community a little
Yeah,
bit closer together. And, if something becomes of it, then great. But I have very, very low expectations. As I said, my videos of my kitten have gotten like 100 times more views than these.
Well, it's a broader audience for that sort of thing on social media.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, well, hey, thanks for dialing in today, and
Well, thank you.
yeah. So again, thanks for sticking around and enjoying this episode of Peep Show Talk number 18. And again, if you enjoy this, like and share. And if you don't like it, why are you still here? Why are you still here? We've been going almost an hour, and you're still watching. I don't understand that. So anyway, hey, thanks for dialing in today, and I will catch you guys on the next one.